Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the best damn pod in the land. I am your host and sports director, Brian Nelson, and with me I have...
Andy Anders, your one and only assistant sports editor.
And you have your assistant sports director, Khalid.
And I'm your sports editor, Griffin Strom. Brian, what do we have going on in the world of Ohio State sports news today?
We have some basketball and some football news to talk about. I don't know what we want to start off with, but Ohio State played against Maryland on Sunday, and then
start off with that.
We can start off with that. They also lost to Iowa on Thursday, so a bit of highs and lows for the basketball team this week.
It's funny you say that, Brian, because that's literally part of the headline to the story I'm writing right now about Ohio State men's basketball.
Plug.
Ohio State's 14-2 at home, and when you look at their numbers and everything, they're an elite team in the country when they play at home. On the road, they're 3-6. They have a chance to get 8 losses on the road for the first time in several years. I'm trying to figure out what that year was that they have had more than that, but and their numbers are just so much worse on the road, almost night and day, and from player to player as well. Like Kyle Young, the surprising one to me was Kyle Young, like almost averages twice as many points at home than on the road. He shoots like 68% at home, 47% on the road, and there's a ton of drop-offs like that with the entire team, home and away. But they got one of the biggest wins of their entire season against Maryland, the 4th top 10 team of the season that they've defeated on Sunday against number 7 Maryland. That was one of the most fun games, I think, to be at all season because
Absolutely.
it was a packed house. The crowd was super into the game.
I thought they were allowed for Villanova. Man, it was rocking when they were playing Maryland past weekend.
That it was. And it was Luther Muhammad was actually the X factor. He had a season-high 22 points. He had 24 against Nebraska last season, so it wasn't quite a career high for Luther Muhammad, but kind of been much maligned this year because of a long shooting slump, but he's gotten back into the rhythm of things and had his best performance of the year. What'd you see out of your man?
I would say that 22 points that he scored wasn't even the best thing he did that day. It was stopping Anthony Cohen Jr. from scoring. We're talking about a guy who's an All-American candidate and a Naismith candidate, and he is one of the best players in the country, and he's one of the best scorers in the country, and Luther Muhammad held him to just one bucket. He had, 10 points, but 8 of those were from the free throw line, and only one basket that was made. So Luther Muhammad's best effort was on the defensive end, and there was so much energy, and he was bringing so much energy on the defensive end, and it translated on the offensive end in transition. His three-point success lately has been the X factor that has completely shifted what this team has been looking like. We're so used to Dwayne Washington having hot and cold games from the three-point line, but it seems like when Luther Muhammad is scoring from deep, this team looks like that team that was once ranked number 2 in the country.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and you talk about the frustration that he caused with Anthony Cowan. He was Maryland's leading scorer, like 16 a game, something like that. Obviously, you said he only had 10, but that frustration really reared its head late in the game because one of the more controversial moments of the game. And the game was really in the balance at that point. It might have been like a 4 or 6 point game.
Yeah, it was still pretty close.
Yeah, and the last several minutes, maybe like 3 or 4 minutes left in the game, Anthony Cowan went to the bucket. He drew some contact from Caleb Wesson. He made the basket, but he did not get the foul. And he's laying down on the ground. Him and Wesson are both on the ground. And Anthony Cowan's looking up at the ref. He sees that he is not going to get the call, and he kicks his foot out in the direction of Caleb Wesson's head. And he got a technical foul, which was also his 5th personal foul. So the best player on the team fouls out for the last stretch of an important game. And the camera angle they showed when I was looking, it really did look like he was really trying to cook Caleb Wesson in the head. But then after the game, Mark Turgeon, the Maryland head coach, was really being adamant that his player wasn't trying to hurt Caleb Wesson, that he was just really, really frustrated, and that the kick was more towards the referee or the lack of the call rather than trying to actually be aimed at Caleb Wesson's head.
I'll be honest though, watching that live, when he fell to the ground, just unbiasedly, I'll say that I thought he deserved to get a foul call on that bucket, and when he kicked his leg out and everything, it more so seemed to me like, he was gonna get a technical for yelling, screaming at the ref and just showing that how upset he was with the no call. And then they showed, and that's why I thought everyone was screaming in the arena for, because they were all like, "Whoa, what just happened? Why is he allowed to do that?" And I thought he was going to get teed up for that reaction towards the referee. But then they played the replay on the jumbotron, and it did look like he was kicking at Caleb Wesson's head, and that's why they were kind of being separated. So it made sense, but yeah, just initially my first reaction was that it wasn't towards Caleb Wesson. So I don't know. I kind of, you never really know, but looking back, that's what I think it was.
It was part of kind of an interesting back and forth also after the game with Mark Turgeon and Chris Holtman.
Yeah.
Because
Turgeon called Caleb Wesson a thug. And
No, he
went-
called him
well,
a
he
bully.
didn't.
Bully.
Yeah, he didn't quite. He was giving him compliments, but then it
I
was.
think there would have been a lot more lashback if he'd
Yeah, I
called
was
him a
about to say,
thug.
if he called him a thug,
Yeah.
he would have gone out like a Bayline. But no, Mark Turgeon was like, he was asked about Caleb Wesson, and he was like, "Oh yeah, Caleb Wesson's a great player when he's allowed to be a bully," and basically said that in the game he wasn't getting.
He was able to do whatever he
Yeah,
wants
he
down
wasn't-
in the post. and-
Yeah, they weren't calling a lot of fouls on him. Is what he was trying to imply. And then when Chris Holtman was asked about that comment, that reaction was pretty funny. He was like, "Did Mark say that?"
Is it weird that I took that as a compliment? Like, when he said that about Caleb Wesson being a bully, I was like, oh, that's probably the best thing Caleb Wesson's ever heard. But then I guess, like, when I thought about it, and I was like, I don't
When
think
he's
that's-
allowed to be a bully is the thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
Right,
what he's
not-
allowed to be. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know. Part of that might have been a commentary on the fact that Caleb's kind of been. He doesn't get a lot of foul calls throughout the season just because of his size and because guys can get away with more against him than I think other players. We've seen that in the past.
I feel like he's more of a finesse kind of player anyway. So, like, when you heard bully, I was like, oh, that's like.
Right, but
opposite
like
of-
he's saying bully like it's a dirty thing in that
Yeah.
context, and I'm like, what? Since when is backing someone down in the post illegal? That's like just what you do in basketball.
I was
Right.
just
I mean,
asking
Bullying
Chris.
people on the offensive end is what LeBron made a career out of. So I don't know what he's
Well,
on about.
He was more so referring to the fact that Justin Smith, who I think averages like 15 points a game for Maryland.
Jalen Smith.
Jalen Smith, yeah. I
Yeah,
keep
Jalen
calling him
Smith.
Justin Smith.
We're all mixing up words here
Jalen
today.
Sticks Smith was really shut down almost the entire game, and I think that's what Mark Turgeon was
More
kind
on
of
the
referring to
defensive
was,
end.
was that Smith couldn't get going, and he thought that Caleb Wesson was kind of all over him. But I just thought the back and forth between the coaches was kind of funny, and I know that got a lot of likes for us on the Lantern Sports Twitter when I put that out.
Plug.
And everyone was people were going back and forth in the comments about Mark Turgeon being a crybaby or
I will be honest, he was a crybaby in that post-game press conference.
definitely more so than I've
I was
seen
like,
from other coaches.
Yeah, I thought he would be very, like, just neutral, but no, he came in there and every word out of his mouth, every answer he had was just kind of like whining and crying. It was like,
Yeah.
and you literally like played a good game as a team. It was just Ohio State was clicking on all cylinders. Like, you can't really complain, you know?
Right.
Yeah,
But even in the comment section, all you saw in Ohio State's like comments under their like final score were just Maryland fans saying, "Oh, the refs," and I was like, I didn't see it that like.
Yeah, I didn't
I didn't
see
see
a
the
lot
refs really took over like that. I thought it was just
Me
more
neither.
so
I also wouldn't say Caleb Wesson being able to be a bully was the reason why Ohio State won. The reason why was because Luther Muhammad and every other player on the team were hitting threes super early to get that early lead.
Not only that, it was just Ohio State taking away Maryland's two best players.
Yeah,
Coming
yeah.
into the game, Anthony Cowan and Sticks, we thought those two guys were going to be like the X factor, but those are the two guys who probably had the least impact. It was Aaron Wiggins who was going off and keeping them in the game. So
6 threes.
yeah, so I would say that was the guy who was.
He cut it to 4 points a couple times very late in the game. Even with like 30 seconds left, I think he hit another three to cut it down to 4, and it was like it was
almost
still a
cut that.
game until very late.
Yeah. Also, to further jump on the Luther Muhammad praise train or whatever you want to call it, one thing that should be noted for him is the fact that he not only had 22 points, but he was perfect from the free throw line. He had four. He
Yep.
made 4 of the 8 he made late in the game within like the last minute.
48 seconds, I believe it
What
was.
was funny is
Yeah.
when he was at the free throw line, when he was going up for his last 4 free throw attempts, he kept going like this to his veins, saying, "I got ice in my veins."
The
like
D'Angelo
he was,
Russell.
Yeah, he was feeling himself like that.
Yeah.
So I mean, deservingly so.
Luther gets some trash talk going when he's
Not
on.
only that, man, I think he brings like like when he's balling, like he brings a spark to this team like that they need, because CJ Walker more is like a crowd amber. Like whenever he makes a shot, like he gets the crowd involved, right? And it's kind of like Dwayne Washington, the same thing. When he gets hot, he gets the crowd involved. But I feel like when Luther gets going, it's more so of like trash talking against the defense. You can't really stop me. Like he's getting his guys. Like you know how they always huddle after every like timeout or foul call. You can always hear him saying like, "Oh, let's go!" Like they're scared. You know, he's always hyping his team up. So he brings that energy factor to this team when he's playing well.
Oh, talking on the larger implications though of this win in general, it seems Ohio State's now, I think, pretty well destined for the NCAA tournament. I don't think they're a dead bubble team anymore.
Well,
after
like
this
23
win.
in the country, so
Yeah, they're ranked now, which obviously there's been. Wouldn't be. It's exceedingly rare for a ranked team not to get in, but it has happened before, once or twice in the history of the 64-team field to 68 team when it after expanded to 64. But even then, you look at their remaining schedule. They've got Nebraska's 7-20 this year. That's their next game. You get Michigan at home, who you already beat on the road. Then you get Illinois at home.
Who's been in free for all essentially for the past month.
In February, yeah, but they did upset Penn State recently.
They did, yes.
But like you said, their February has been pretty bad, and you get Michigan State to close out's pretty tough. But you're almost. It would take a collapse not to win 2 of those 3. I think Nebraska, Michigan, Illinois. Then you're at 20 wins in the Big Ten. That's a lock for the tourney, I would think. And I'd say they're vying to try and maybe get back in the 5 or 6 seed range. I can't see them moving far beyond that.
Depends on how they do in the
If
Big Ten tournament.
if they were to win out,
tournament?
if they win out and win the tourney, then you're talking 2 or 3. But like, I don't see that happening.
I think they're pretty much a lock for somewhere between 4 and 6.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Seems like their comfort zone, but now back to just how well this team's been performing over the past. What is it like now? 6 of their last 7 games they've won, or something like that.
I think
they've lost 2, right?
Yeah, they lost 2 in
Iowa
the
and-
stretch.
Oh yeah, they lost Iowa.
4, 4,
yeah.
5, 5,
They lost 2,
6.
but they've won. They're like 2 out of
6 of 8.
6 of 8 now, right?
It's a nice stretch.
But so I know, like me and Andy, we've been critical of Luther Muhammad early in the season, right? When he had a slow start, and I've been critical of CJ Walker because I thought coming into his junior year and he's had a lot of experience, and this team needed that veteran presence in the backcourt. He wasn't producing, but as of recently, I feel like ever since DJ Carton has been away from this team, he's stepped up big time. He's been playing a lot of minutes as of lately, as they don't really have the luxury of bringing in multiple backups for him. But
Realize Andre played all 40 minutes.
yeah,
Yeah.
I'm gonna say Andre's next. He's been playing a lot better as well. Andre's kind of like the calm soul on this team, where he doesn't ever get too high when he's hitting a bunch of shots, but he doesn't ever get low, which is kind of what you expect from your senior leader on the team. But yeah, CJ Walker's been very impressive as of lately because he's getting like we've been talking about. We've been wanting to see him take better shot selections, and he's been doing that. He hasn't been forcing drives to the layup when there's 2 guys in there, or he hasn't been forcing anything. He's been swinging balls around and hitting his open 3-pointers and playing very, very well, surprisingly, on defense against top point guards in this Big Ten. So yeah, I've been very impressed with Luther Muhammad and CJ Walker's rise back to
CJ Walker had an absolutely dirty drive to the basket.
Oh, yeah.
my, that
That
Euro
Euro
step
step.
was, listen, I was sitting under, and I try not to celebrate, but when he hit that Euro step, I was like, oh my God, that was so
Yeah.
cold. Like,
The moment I filmed that, I was like, that's going in the
it
highlight
was
reel.
so smooth. Like,
Yeah.
that was the last thing I expected. I expected, like, a drive and a crazy layup over top of this. Because I think it was, like, Sticks or somebody, some big center or forward that was trailing behind, and he hit him. I think it was Sticks where he hit that little Euro. It was
Yeah.
cold. And then they hit timeout, and
Yeah, that was a big
Oh,
moment
man.
because that was the end of their 7-0 run that started the second half and put them up 14. And Maryland obviously did end up coming back a little bit, but they couldn't come all the way back. So
Yeah. Just in general, though, CJ Walker has had much better shot selection. I think he and Dwayne Washington have been driving a lot more, and I think that's really added a lot of momentum to this offense. And then I think that's kind of spread the floor, especially when you add Justin Ahrens into the mix. Has allowed them to, get open looks at 3 and sink them, as opposed to just being cold all game.
you bring up Dwayne Washington, and I will say this: like, he is the one last guy on this team that I'm still waiting to give him his credit of like, oh yeah, he's back, because it's like he
He's been
I don't
getting
know
it done more on the inside
Yeah, it's like
lately.
you never exactly, and for me, it's like he's such a great finisher at the rim. I feel like, but what my issue with him is when he gets the ball, he's like a ball stopper. Like there's so much ball movement when he's not in the game, and then he gets in the game, and say he brings up the ball, and then he comes off of a pick off of Caleb, and he's just dribbling, and that's like nothing ever happens. That's how he gets into these turnover habits, and you could just see Chris Holtman on the sideline like banging the table, whatever, and just pulling his hair out because it's like, stop forcing stuff. Just if you're not getting an open shot, just continue to move the ball, But he tends to hold on to the ball and creates turnovers. And I also have been telling Griffin, like, I hate when Dwayne Washington brings the ball up the court. Like, they're always trying to bring Caleb Wesson or Kyle Young to kind of do that little stand in the way of the defender so they're not stripping the ball from him. But it's almost always a turnover because he just panics and makes a stupid lengthy pass. I think Luther Muhammad or C.J. Walker at all times should be bringing the ball up the court.
Well, I think, on turnovers in general, though, Ohio State only had 10 in that game. And I think when this team, part of its issues have been with turnovers in the past. Mm-hmm. When you're taking – this offense can run crisply when they're not turning the ball over. I think most of their games that they've had higher shooting percentages in have correlated with lower turnover numbers. This game they shot 43% and only turned the ball over 10 times. So it's a whole rhythm thing with this team, I feel like.
Yeah.
Back to what he was saying, the whole home court and away advantages, like that the two different playing styles when they're at home and when they're away. Like you said, it's kind of like this team when they're hot, when they're high, they're high, but when they're low, they're low. And I feel like home court with the crowd backing them, they play at a completely different level. But when they go on the road, you just see a completely different team where they start out the game flat. They have zero energy, it seems like, and just plays that are electric, that get them going. So we're still talking about consistency problems with this team.
I mean, you look at what happened against Iowa. That's a textbook example. They were down by 11 at halftime, and they tried to say just some sort of comeback in the second half. I think they scored 41 in the second half, but by then you're down by too much.
And I know Chris Holman always brings up Jay-Sean Tate and how this team lacks a guy like Jay-Sean Tate who his thing is being in the post and getting putbacks and stuff, and how this team has a lot of guys who live and die at the three-point line. But I feel like had they had a guy who was kind of like Jay-Sean Tate, they would be a much better team on the road because that's kind of what you need on the road. Because like we all know, like when you go on the road, it's a lot tougher to hit as many three-pointers than when you're at home. But when they don't have that guy like Jay-Sean Tate who can get you the bucket inside and get you the bully ball, baskets at the basket, like it's tough.
Yeah, I think that's still kind of what we've been expecting C.J. Walker to step up and do. Like that was the role he was supposed to fill, and we still haven't seen that consistently on the road. He's been doing it at home just fine. Most of the team has, but there's still that extra step when you factor in what happens at the Big Ten tournament or even in the NCAA tournament.
Okay, talking about moving forward with the Buckeyes, one thing we glossed over there was the injury to an Ohio State starting player.
Just about to bring that up, yeah.
Yeah. Kyle Young, another in the series of unfortunate events for Kyle Young, a high ankle sprain on Sunday. And I'll be honest, when he went down, I know Chris Holtman said it too, but I definitely thought as well, did he was it his leg that he's been dealing with recently, that he had that stress fracture in last year. He's been wearing the tape on those legs. One of the other Lantern staff members was saying that they've seen him walking around in a boot even last week because of that injury, not wanting to re-aggravate that injury or having some soreness or whatever it is with that stress fracture. And so when he went down, I assumed it was that same issue. And that's what Chris Holtman said afterwards too. That was his main concern. But supposedly he just has a high ankle sprain. Maybe honestly him being out with a high ankle sprain will give him a chance to rest those banged up legs anyway and come back for what's the usual timetable on a high ankle sprain? I wouldn't know.
It varies a lot, but
it depends on how severe the sprain is.
It can be anywhere from a week to 6.
Yeah, I was about to say. Depends on severe. But honestly, the bright thing about this is that now E.J. Liddell is going to be forced to be playing some critical minutes for the Buckeyes. Yeah. Or they're going to be running a lot of small ball. But when E.J.
He only played 12. He only played 12.
Yeah, he only played 12. But I feel like when he came in, though, it doesn't show up on the stat sheets because he only had, two points. But he had 5 rebounds, and 3 of them were offensive.
Yeah,
And
Holman had a lot of praise.
I was
for
about to say,
those.
the way he played, it wasn't really showing up on the stat sheets, but I thought he played very, very well.
Well, we were talking about this last podcast. It almost, a lot of times it feels like he's playing timid. Like he's not playing the way a big man needs to play in the Big Ten.
He seems kind of like somebody who is still learning.
Like he wasn't.
System.
Guys got out of his way in high school. I was talking to I brought this up last podcast, but guys got out of his way in high school. He wasn't used to the style of physical big men in the Big Ten that he's having to deal with now. He has the frame to deal with it, but he's not bowling his chest out and finishing strong at the bucket. He's not bodying guys to get rebounds. It's a lot of he had that one turnaround fadeaway shot, which is totally not in his game right now.
I feel like he's very comparable to Jayshawn Tate, like Chris Holman loves, and I feel like as he gets older, that's kind of that kind of player we're going to see, but a little bit more skilled.
He also has a couple inches on Tate too.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that's kind of the role he is in going forward. He just needs to get a little more strength, a little more confidence, start bodying people.
He has I feel like he has a lot of post moves in his package. Like sometimes he'll pull it out, but what ends up happening is when that help defense comes, he kind of becomes, like you said, very timid and very oh, what do I do in this scenario? Should I shoot it? Will coach get mad, or should I pass it out? What if it's a turnover? That's kind of when it gets tricky. But when he has his man one-on-one in the post, you can see just the way he dribbles. Oh yeah, he's very confident in his post moves. But we're still waiting to see him believe that he can actually do this.
He just needs one more. So we were talking about him going strong to the hoop and whatnot last week's podcast, or a lack thereof of going up strong with the ball under the basket. So there was a possession just like that in this past game against Maryland, where he got the ball on an offensive rebound or whatever it was, and he just it was very easy to read. He gathered himself. He didn't pump fake. He just gathered himself and went straight up and then lost the ball at the rim.
Yeah.
And it was he just needs that extra little polish of being able to have a nice pump fake in a pivot and a dunk. You know what I mean?
No, for sure.
Because that's what would help you in that situation. Right now he's just he's kind of telegraphing his move there and not trying to create that necessary space so that he can finish. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Speaking of that, though, I feel like that's kind of my issue with Caleb as of recently. Obviously Caleb has a really well-rounded game, but I feel like when he gets the ball and he's right underneath the basket, he spends a lot of time trying to pump fake where it gives the defense time to kind of set up, and that's how he's getting all these fouls. But I mean, it could end up working out because he is going to the free throw line quite a lot. But and what was he? He was 3 of 5, but I just feel like he's had a lot of missed opportunities at the basket because he's right there. But he doesn't go straight up. He'll take a moment to see who's around or put the ball on the floor and dribble, and that way he just kind of gets all out of place.
I feel like Caleb Wesson has both the skill and the potential to be consistently scoring 20 points a game. Mm-hmm. I don't see why he shouldn't be doing that. I think we've all said this, but we feel like there's that little lack of an X factor from Caleb Wesson sometimes. He's consistent. He's good. He does what he needs to do. He gets a lot of rebounds. He is always a main contributor to the offense, but I just always feel like he should be a little more aggressive, especially down in the post. I just feel like with his height, to quote Mark Turdron, he could play more like a bully. He could pull that off. I think he has the skill to do so.
Unless my calculations are wrong here, from my tallies the last couple of days, Caleb Wesson has made as many threes in just home games as Dwayne Washington has, which seems
that is
kind of crazy.
Perplexing.
But also Dwayne Washington was suspended for a couple of games. He did miss those 2 games with the ribs too, so that could be part of it. But Caleb Wesson is shooting 50% from 3 at home this year.
I'm just about to say we're talking about Caleb Wesson in the post, but one thing I love about his game is how willing he is to shoot at the 3-point line, and that's what's making that Dwayne Washington and Caleb pick and pop thing at the top of the key. That's what's making it so successful is the fact that Caleb is willing to take that shot. So the big kind of has to step up, and that gives Dwayne Washington those lanes to the basket where he's able to get those finishes. But yeah, like you were saying, Caleb shooting 50% at 3 at home, that's a big thing.
That's what he was Sunday too, 2 for 4.
Yeah, I do want to touch more on the absence of Kyle Young because while EJ Liddell has been playing better as of late, I think if Young is out for an extended period of time, that is a huge blow to both the Ohio State offense and the defense.
Well, no doubt.
I don't think it looked as serious to where I feel like this will be something that will have him miss like the entire Big Ten tournament or anything like that. I feel like he might miss the remainder of the season, depending on how serious it is. But just the way I see him walk off, I feel like he has enough time to where even at maybe Michigan State, I think if it's not that bad of an injury, then he should be back.
I don't think they're going to rush him back, though.
I don't think they're going to rush him back, and even then, when he comes back, he might not be playing the full game. They're probably going to
in the regular season. I think the goal will be the Big Ten tournament.
Yeah. But I mean, we've talked about Kyle Young and just like he has that X factor. He does the little things that no one else does. Defensively, he's super scrappy. On offense, he's always like fighting for the ball. He's always going out for rebounds. I mean, that's how
he's the energy guy.
He's the energy guy, and I think we're talking about what Jayshawn Tate brought to the offense. I almost feel like Kyle Young sometimes is that spark plug for
definitely.
the Ohio State team, and if he's gone even in the Big Ten tournament, that could be a difference maker.
Oh yeah, for sure. Also, I know a lot the viewers are probably wondering about DJ Carton's situation. Unless you guys know something that I don't know, but pretty much as right now, there's no update and there's no expected time of return for DJ Carton. Is that correct?
Well, yeah, he did. So it was last week. We saw that. And
he's back with the
team. It was
team
confirmed
now.
to well, not back with the team necessarily, but back with in Columbus and trying to get his situation configured or whatever. But Chris Holtman was basically saying in the availability the day before we found that out that a lot has to happen. There's a lot of protocols and whatnot that have to go on before someone can rejoin the school, let alone the actual basketball team, because he did leave the whole school for medical reasons. And so Chris Holtman was basically saying when that happens, it's not just the next day you can just come back and rejoin everything. He has to go through some process before. He said before it was even a conversation that he would be attending games or anything like that. So that makes me feel like the ball is rolling again for the ball is rolling, but nothing. He's not going to rejoin the team this season.
Yeah,
I'm very comfortable saying that.
Yeah, it definitely felt like it's just saying he'll be back next season if things work out.
Yes. I mean, yeah, I'm sure we can all agree he deserves the support for his own personal being and everything. But yeah, that's definitely something that could potentially hurt this team going into the tournament, is losing that playmaker that is DJ Carton, who is very explosive. But yeah, next year, when he comes back, hopefully everything is situated and he's all good to go. But he's an exciting young guy on this team.
Because you got to think about it. It's one thing if you're injured and you're out and you're still at practice every day. You're still at the in the games. You're still hearing everything. Following all of that stuff. But when you're not even around the team, when you're literally
even if you do come back, it's
how can you come back and then immediately get thrust into playing 30 minutes a game? It just wouldn't happen.
You're at the end of the season, so it's guys are at their peak of the season.
Yeah.
You're just trying to get back into
time,
the conditioning, and you're basically back in training camp.
Yeah.
So it's tough.
There's just not time to get them reacclimated.
You're just asking for an injury at that point.
Yeah,
right.
Which again, kind of puts a lot of weight on CJ Walker's shoulders, because he's he's the main point guard for this team now, and he has to be the one stepping up.
But I'm sure even if you ask CJ Walker are you how are you fitting into this role, whatever, I'm sure he'll tell you I was made for this position, because he sat out an entire season last year with the Buckeyes without getting on the court. So now you're telling him, you're going to be playing 35 minutes a game. I'm sure he's sign me up for it,
But that's kind of why it's so alarming to me how much worse his numbers are on the road as opposed to home, because that's the type of guy they keep talking about him he's a guy that has experience, and he's coming from a different situation, playing for a different team. Yeah. So you'd think that maybe if anyone would be a guy that would be pretty stable, playing in any environment, right. I would feel like it would be him. But really, Andre is the only out of the guys. I tallied up 6 of the players' entire stats from home and away. Yeah. And Andre was the one guy who's scoring barely dipped. His percentages didn't dip very much. But other than that,
kind of if Caleb plays well on the road, then this team kind of does decent on the road. But like you said, like even Andre's the only guy who really has stayed consistent. So kind of like on the road when Caleb's not getting his buckets and not getting to the free throw and things like that, it's kind of like the rest of the team is struggling to find their shot. It has a trickle-down effect.
I think Andre is like the one player on this offense who doesn't necessarily need to feed off of Caleb Wesson because he can.
Andre doesn't need to feed off of anybody.
Exactly.
Right.
He'll make his shots regardless of what's happening around him.
That's the one thing I love about Andre's game is the fact that, like, he knows his role on this team and he doesn't try to, like, exceed it or try to play below it. He just comes in. He's kind of like a professional in a sense. So, like, he just comes in and does what he has to do. And whether the team outside of him performs well or not, like, you can know, like, he's going to be consistent, you know?
Yeah. I feel like in the NBA, like if you like converted like the amount of time like they play in the college game versus NBA, he'd be the type of guy that give you like a quiet 15 a game.
Yeah.
But in the college game, he's the type of guy that gives you like a quiet like 9 a game.
Be like a NBA comparison, like not like playing style, but just like who's Andre in the league?
Knows their role, can shoot a three, can play defense.
A lot of guys.
A lot of guys, yeah.
Is Trevor Ariza a bet? No.
I would say Trevor Reese a good comparison.
Trevor Ariza, like he'll give you a solid like 10 to 15 a night.
On the high end, his game is kind of similar to Clay, but I mean he's not like
Not nearly as
he's
good
not
of
like a
a three
superstar
shooter.
like Clay is. But I'm saying like shoot the three, play D.
But I feel like that's kind of different because Clay will average 25, but
But Andre can facilitate too.
Yeah. So
He has some
And
nice
I guess
passes.
he plays the
he's
three.
smart. He's very
And he
smart.
rebounds very well too.
We gotta figure that out. Let's get a nice little.
Jared Dudley.
No.
Dudley, that's
Absolutely not.
crazy.
Disrespect. Andre, don't worry. I won't let them do that to you.
I'm kidding.
Careful, Griffin. Don't break
Frick.
I'm trying to think of.
Who's like I'm trying to think like there's some small forwards like that shoot and play defense.
There's definitely a lot. But do we want to touch on the Ryan Day
Yeah.
I
contract?
can talk about Ryan Day.
All right. So breaking this morning, not by the Lantern, but by some other outlets first. But we were on it right afterward. You know, I got the story up bright and earlier than I'm usually awake. Plug. Go read it.
Go read.
.com. Ryan Day has been extended through 2026 on his new contract. Not new contract, his contract. His current contract ran through 2023.
But Andy, he was only there for 1 year.
But they went 13-0 in the regular season and made the college football playoff. And he's recruiting like, you know, the recruiting has not fallen off at all. Maybe even gotten a little better since.
So you're saying they didn't drop off since Urban Meyer left?
Nope, that's exactly what I'm saying.
It's definitely gotten
Gotcha.
better in terms of local recruiting with Ohio.
Yes, they've added, well, in terms of more Ohio players, yes. And I get they're still getting all the top end players they want from Ohio too. I mean, looking at this 2021 class could be an all-time class that they're recruiting right now.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, just the ridiculous nature of who they've already landed. I mean, 2 5-star commits already. How many players in the top 100? 7. Already 7 players in the top 100 recruits.
Wow.
For 2021 are committed to Ohio State.
That's ridiculous.
So the future of the program in the class is ranked number 1 in the country.
Trending up, as hard as that is to believe.
Yes, they've got more 5-stars in the potential, you know, in the wings a little
Yeah.
bit.
Also, they have 7 in the top 100, and they have the number 101 guy too. So
Wow.
they essentially have 8 top 100.
And given that success,
Impressive.
it kind of made it kind of shocking that Ryan Day was just the 7th highest paid Big Ten head coach this past year. So that was kind of like, wow.
Well, yeah, it was his first year as a head coach.
Right,
you know?
right. But I'm saying that didn't necessarily match up. The pay didn't necessarily match up with the his output, his performance this year, which is why no one's going to be like, no one's shocked at all that he's going to be making more money now.
Yeah.
And he's still, so next year, if all the other coaches in college football were to make the same as what they made this past year, which obviously won't be the case, but then Ryan Day would be like, I think the number 11 highest paid coach in college football.
Which is a bargain.
And still, and still like the 3rd highest paid Big Ten coach, I believe.
Who are the other two, if you know?
James Franklin made $5.6 million last year in salary.
Harbaugh.
Harbaugh,
yeah.
and then Purdue's head coach also.
Brom?
Yeah.
Oh, he's been there for a while, hasn't he?
No, he hasn't.
No?
It's like it'll be his third season, right?
Oh, I'm not thinking about him then.
No.
But North-
He was at Western Carolina before.
What coach?
Or
in the Big
Kentucky,
Ten has
not
been there for,
Carolina.
like,
He was at Western Kentucky.
What coach in the Big Ten has been there for like over? Is it Northwestern's coach?
Pat Fitzgerald.
He's been there for how long?
He's been there a while.
Yeah,
He's
that's
been there a
what I
long
was
time.
thinking.
Here, I'm gonna pull.
They get along with Kirk Ferentz has been there forever for Iowa.
Kirk Ferentz, he was. Never mind.
I think.
But
I mean, D'Antonio
He was
obviously
number
is no longer Michigan State's head coach. He was one of the longest tenured. I'm trying to think who else has had. Is that about it? Long tenured guys in the Big Ten.
Yeah. Pat Fitzgerald's been at Northwestern as head coach since 2006.
How long's Ferentz been in Iowa?
1 second.
And so Ryan Day will be making like 5.4 million next year, but by the time it comes around to 2022, I believe he'll be making 7.6, which is the salary that Urban Meyer got in his final season with Ohio State.
Dang.
Wait,
Ferentz,
you saying in 2026?
2022.
Yeah.
He'll be making
Okay,
7.6 million.
Okay. That's
Ferentz has been at Iowa as head coach since 1999.
Wow.
Called it.
at Iowa.
In
Yeah.
Iowa, yeah. He's been there for forever.
Holy, that's some security. That's
20
some
years
job
in the
security
game,
right
man.
there.
I mean, the before and after of what he's done there.
And he signed an extension, too, through 2026, back in, like, 2016, too.
Mm-hmm.
So he's there.
He'll probably be there till he retires. Yeah, I can't
playing
think
the
of
long
anyone
game.
else besides those two, Fitzgerald and Ferentz, that have been like super long tenured.
But
Yeah.
interesting to note, Woody Hayes, when he first came to Ohio State, 12,500 was what he was making. Which
In his first
translates-
year. Well, Woody Hayes, a lot of people hated that hire when it happened, you know.
That's bizarre.
Well, because he didn't have a reputation really to that point. They actually changed the words of the alma mater to "Oh, come let's sing Ohio's praise and say goodbye to Woody Hayes." The entire campus wanted
Wow.
Paul Brown back because he won the national championship in the 40s.
Right. That does make sense.
Then Woody obviously went out and won the Natty in his fourth season, and everyone changed on their tune on that.
Even by his last season, he was only making 43,000 that year, which today would translate to like 174,000, I believe, something like that, which is still a pretty nice salary. I mean,
Yeah.
I would certainly take
But
that
it doesn't
salary.
compare, yeah.
But clearly it does not compare
Very
to
underpaid.
I mean,
the
looking
millions.
at well, yeah, but I mean, just the general landscape of sports at that time didn't have those kind of salaries that we have to like. Shoot, so that was 1978. He was making 43,000. Walter Payton made an equivalent of like 500K at the peak of his pay, and
Wow.
like as the highest paid player in the NFL. So
times have changed.
times
Yeah,
have changed.
that was-
Maybe not. The 500K might be a
And,
little
and
low.
just like a couple of years before, a different sport, but baseball free agency had just started, and you had players like Reggie Jackson like making like $1 million. Like that's just when it happened. Too.
Right.
And then for those of you who are interested in jersey numbers, we had an update on Ohio State Buckeyes who are now switching jerseys. So some key players on the team who are switching jersey numbers is Chris Olave, who has switched from 17 to number 2.
CO2,
Taraji, yep, that's his new nickname.
as they call him.
See you.
Taraji Mitchell
Carbon
and Mario
dioxide.
McCall are now switching to number 3 on offense and defense. This one is my favorite one. Seven Banks is now, you guessed it, number 7.
Yep.
Zach Harrison, his sophomore year is changing from number 33 to number 9.
I like that
That's
number
definitely
better for
cooler.
him.
Definitely
Yeah.
a cooler number for him.
Exactly. Harry Miller is now switching to number 76, and
Although then again, 9's kind of an odd number for. I
it is odd,
like
but
the
it's
single
better than
digits.
33.
I like 33
9.
just isn't a
It just-
defensive
it looked-
end
It
number.
just looked nice. It looked
Like if he
a-
was a middle linebacker, if he's an outside linebacker, then 33 works.
yeah,
But
it
like,
looked he's too big for a 33.
the ends too no.
And then for those of you who care, Jagger LaRoe is now number 19.
Jagger LaRoe.
Makes it worse.
Shout out Jagger LaRoe.
And then we also have
Danny Hummer on the football team.
and then we have the freshmen, the incoming freshmen who have now had their numbers. Legend Cavazos and Julian Fleming, the two roommates, will both be wearing the same number 4. Quarterback CJ Stroud is now.
That 4 will look crispy on Fleming. I don't know.
Yeah, oh for sure. And then you have CJ Stroud at number 7, Jack Miller at number 9, Mookie Cooper taking over my number 10, Jackson Smith and Jigba number 11, G Scott 13, Ryan Watts 16, Court Williams 29, Luke Weipler 58, Darion Henry Young 59, Paris Johnson, as you expected, 77.
But what about Trey LaRue?
Trey LaRue.
Trey LaRue's number 69.
Let's go.
Legend.
What a nice selection.
That number 2 for the Buckeyes,
Very
man.
nice.
Yeah.
Dobbins, Young.
You don't get a lot of
Et cetera, et
choices of
cetera.
freshmen and what your number is, but
I don't know. That's a pretty perfect selection right there.
yeah.
So
The one thing that I did have a question of, let me pull it up real quick for you guys.
Okay.
Go to the rosters. All right, so one thing that did throw me off is that we have Seven Banks, who is now number 7, and Cameron Babb on offense, who is number 7, and C.J. Stroud, which is a true freshman quarterback, at number 7. I know you can have 2 guys, one on offense, one on defense, but I've never heard of 3 guys.
The rule is they can't be on the field at the same time. So I guess the implication is that those guys will never be on the field at the same time if they keep the same number. I think that
That's
could
weird,
still
that's a
change.
receiver and a quarterback.
It could still change.
And I'm sure if C.J. Stroud is the backup.
And Stroud could be the
Cameron
backup
Babb is,
feasibly.
yeah, exactly. And if Cameron Babb is healthy, he could be in at the end of games. I don't know.
you don't know what Bab's gonna be.
Maybe
doing
they'll
next
do
year.
a Garrett Wilson thing. And
He's
throw
kind of
on
an
a-
he's an unknown. He was a really good recruit out of high school.
If
Babb
he's
was.
healthy, I heard he's dangerous, but yeah,
This,
some injuries.
This
man.
wide receiver room is just so loaded.
Yeah,
It
and
really
young
is, Brian.
too.
It really is.
It's young.
You got to give credit where credit is due to Mr. Brian Hartline for doing an very impressive job.
I wonder how much longer he'll be around before he gets an OC job
Honestly, you
somewhere.
know what's funny? Like, you guys may disagree with me, but I feel like Brian Hartline will not be leaving Ohio State for a very long time. I feel
I
like
get that vibe too.
think about it. He's played in the NFL recently, which means his contracts were pretty nice. So I'm sure he has millions. I don't know his pockets, but I'm sure he's comfortable.
Well, Hartline made a good bit. He was a
And then
good receiver.
He took the what was it? He was basically a volunteer under Zach Smith for a year or 2, and then was moved into like a full-time role as an assistant.
He was a
coach.
grad assistant, I think,
Yeah,
right?
so he just came from just being around, trying to help out, and then he got thrown into the receiver position when Zach Smith left. And I think he's kind of comfortable. Like, now he's making good money to just pretty much coach a position, something fun, and he's still young. So
Well, he went into detail about why he wouldn't leave, and like you don't have to
Go into detail.
You don't have to go into as much detail as he went into why he wouldn't be leaving anytime
Yeah.
soon. You know, you can just say like, "This is my job. I'm always all in on my job," and that's what a lot of guys will say when you ask questions like that.
That's what
Hartline
Halfley said
went on
before he
like a
took
whole-
BC.
What Halfley said.
Yeah, and Hartline went on a whole tangent about like why this is the place he'll be at unless he gets run out of town or something like
I
that.
don't think he's ever, like, I don't know. He doesn't strike me as a guy who's
I-
had all these aspirations.
Like, I
of-
understand that, but, like, when that opportunity comes knocking, it changes. You know? He has
do you think
made
he
a
would-
name for himself on the recruiting. He's the number 1 recruiter in the country.
Right.
There's got to be some major school out there that's at least giving him a glimpse as an OC.
I think what
And
we'll
you take
see-
that phone
I think
call.
what we'll see is him becoming the offensive coordinator here at Ohio State.
That's kinda
within the
what I was
next
thinking,
2
too.
years. I could see that very, very so happening.
I guess, yeah, you could have that kind of under the radar deal. Wasn't there something about like Meyer had already told Dave at one point that he was going to be the future head coach, and that that was kind of to make sure he stayed around. They were kind of like,
Well, I know Meyer had said that he was thinking about staying for another year or 2, but wanted to leave early so that Ryan Day wouldn't leave the program because he knew he
Right.
was going to have more opportunities.
exactly. So like there's kind of those behind closed doors. There are those discussions of, hey, I know like maybe this other opportunity will come up, but stay here and you'll get this promotion in the future. So I do wonder if that's on the table with Hartline.
But
there.
I feel, I don't know, I could be wrong, but I just feel like Brian Hartline he's such a Columbus guy. Like, loved playing.
Oh,
here.
absolutely.
And then on top of that,
But
like
Kerry Combs was too. You get a better opportunity, it happens.
And you could just see how much I don't think there's any coach on this staff right now that has more fun coaching these players than Brian Hartline. Like, he's out there running routes with the guys and joking with them when they're walking back in to do their media availability stuff, and he just seems to be so happy coaching. So I feel like once he does get up to the offensive coordinator, assistant head coach position, like, and he's making close to $1 million. I don't know. I feel like that'll be kind of where he is comfortable until maybe, who knows, a big time. I don't think he'll leave for a small program. I think if a big premier program is calling his name, then maybe, but I don't see him leaving for like a South Florida head coaching job or anything like that.
And just the staff still that Day has assembled is it's for such a young coach to have such a great assistant coaching staff just in general.
Yeah.
It's quite astounding. I know we brought it up before, but like the list of you talk about, Hartline might have already proven himself as the best receivers coach in the country, and certainly among the best. Combs returns as one of the best defensive backs coaches in the country, with now plenty of D-coordinating experience. I'll be interested to see how he fills that role. Madison has a ton of co-DC experience. You got the best D-line coach in the country beyond a doubt.
There's a lot of
Alford's
coaches here
great
that are
developing
locked, I
running
feel like,
backs.
that are not leaving. They're just old. They're not gonna move up to head coaches anytime soon, and they're kind of great at what they do. So,
I'm trying to think of anyone who would be.
there's only think
Like
about
Kevin
all-
Wilson might be the only one I
Kevin
could
was the only-
see.
I feel like Tony Alford, and I feel like it's the younger guys who made like Kevin Wilson maybe, but I feel like
I
he's
just
been
don't. I
coaching-
don't think Alford has OC aspirations. Like running back's kind of the highest he's gonna go.
Wasn't he in the conversation for a head coach of, was it Colorado?
I don't remember that.
Pretty
He was
sure.
getting. There was something on the table
Yeah,
that people were rumors.
he was-
swirling around at some point.
Well, that might be the case.
around the Fiesta Bowl.
I'm
Maybe
pretty
I'm
sure he's one of the hot
mistaken.
candidates, but
I don't know, I
Anyway,
just-
fellas, we've had a long podcast of great sports discussion. I think.
I would definitely.
sorry guys, I
agree.
just
no.
I feel like I haven't been here in a
No.
couple podcasts. So.
This-
Your
this was
absence has been
great.
felt.
I hope you guys didn't get tired of listening to my voice because I feel like I've taken over this podcast today. But
I
Had
loved
some
your
thoughts
energy,
to
man.
get out
This is-
here.
This is a good podcast, and I definitely think our viewers will agree. Did you know, Khalid, we got a comment on the podcast?
We got a
Last week.
comment.
We got a comment.
I
Was it
cannot-
my
Leave
burner
more, please.
It was a comment.
It was the Be Nasty burner.
It was 3
dirty
thumbs
swallow.
up, and that was it. 3 thumbs up.
At least it wasn't 3
We got
thumbs
3
down,
thumbs up.
Brian.
Right?
You know what? We were doing a good job, so we appreciate it. Whoever
maybe you
commented.
can be the 4 thumbs up. So
Yeah,
And you
4
know,
thumbs
no,
up.
I
All
think
4 of
we'll-
us. Yeah.
we'll have to give them 4 thumbs up right now and wish them a great day as we. Head
This
into
is going to be the
another great
thumbnail. Thank you very much for watching another episode of the Best Damn Pod in the Land. Stay tuned for more wacky shenanigans with us next week. And have a great day. Peace.
you guys.
Peace.